Most laptops use a type of memory called SODIMM, which stands for Small Outline Dual Inline Memory Module. These modules are smaller than desktop DIMM modules. Much of both laptop and desktop memory takes the form of DDR or double data rate chips. DDR memory is so called because it transfers data on both the rising and falling edges of the clock signal pulse that synchronizes communications between the CPU, memory, and other system components. DDR memory is power-hungry and quickly drains a battery, requiring 2.5 volts. It introduced a 2-burst deep prefetch buffer. A burst is where bytes are sent in rapid-fire sequence through the I/O pins of the CPU without the normal need for addressing those requests. DDR-RAM has a maximum transfer speed of 1600 megabits per second. DDR modules for desktops have 184 pins and laptop modules have 200 pins. Modules come with designations like PC1600, PC2100, and PC3200, which indicate the rate at which data is guaranteed to perform. For example, DDR PC1600 is designed to perform at 100 MHz, and DDR PC2100 is designed to run at 133 MHz. Yet both can be used interchangeably. Their architecture is the same. It is only the guarantee at which they are stable that differs. DDR2 RAM utilizes double pumping like its DDR predecessor, but allows higher bus speeds and consumes less power. It only uses 1.8 volts compared to DDR's 2.5 volts. DDR2 uses a 4-burst deep prefetch buffer. Desktop DDR2 modules have 240 pins and laptop DDR2 modules have 200 pins. DDR2 transfers data 64 bits at a time and provides a maximum speed of 3200 megabits per second. DDR3 RAM transfers data at twice the rate of its DDR2 predecessor. In addition, it allows chip sizes up to 16 gigabytes. It can perform 2 transfers per cycle and achieve transfer rates 64 times that of the memory clock. In the same way that DDR2, requiring 1.8 volts, reduced power consumption compared to older DDR, which required 2.5 volts, DDR3 memory uses 30% less power than DDR2, requiring only 1.5 volts. This can help to extend battery life. DDR3 uses an 8-burst deep prefetch buffer. Desktop DDR3 modules have 240 pins, and laptop DDR3 SODIMM modules have 204 pins. Low-end DDR3 modules transfer data at 6400 megabits per second, whereas high-end modules attain speeds up to 17,066 megabits per second. And now a list of caveats. Note: unplug your laptop before removing and replacing your RAM. Also, depending on your laptop model, you may want to remove your battery and allow any capacitors that may be holding a charge to drain for about 30 minutes. Note: memory modules are highly susceptible to electrostatic discharge or ESD. You may want to wear a ground strap or stand on an anti-static mat before handling your computer memory. If you do not have these items, ground yourself out on something before handling RAM. Note: do not apply excessive force when handling memory modules. Use a light touch. Note: make sure you order and use the right kind of memory for your laptop. Using the wrong kind means it won't work, and it may damage your memory or your laptop. Remember, each laptop notebook model is different and requires different architectures, voltages, memory clock speeds, and capacities. Additional precautions: take your vitamins, eat your veggies, look both ways before crossing the street. Just kidding. I'm going to upgrade the RAM in this laptop, and this is a Toshiba, and it's an i3, Intel-based series, model A665-S6050, and it's not a very expensive laptop. Pretty good performance. It's like i3, 4 cores, comes standard with 4 gigs of RAM. It's got all the amenities, HDMI, all the things a typical modern laptop has. So I'm not complaining for $500, but I looked it up online. I Googled it, and I found out that this particular model can go up to 8 gigabytes. And if you're going to upgrade your laptop's memory, every model is different. Some have different numbers of traces on the main board, and they can support different amounts of memory. Some only support 2 gigs, some only support 4 gigs, some can support up to 8 gig. So you'll want to Google the model of your laptop, and also you need to know the kind of memory. And in this case, a little bit of Googling, and or you can take the old memory out and look at it if you want to do that. But I realized for this model it was it's all going to be SODIMM, which is different from desktop memory. SODIMM laptop memory is a little bit shorter, but for me it was DDR3 8500. And be careful with static electricity. You want to wear a static strap or ground yourself out on the building ground, or maybe be standing on an anti-static mat. Right now I'm on an anti-static mat when you handle these things, but you can see how it's quite a bit smaller than desktop RAM. So these are two 4 gigabyte chips, and the architecture is such on this laptop I only have 2 slots. So from the factory it comes with two 2 gigabyte chips. That's how it gets to 4 gigabytes. To go up to its 8 gigabyte capacity, I had to get 2 4 gigabyte chips, and I just found them pretty inexpensively on Amazon.com. I buy memory from Amazon.com, Tiger Direct, PriceWatch, Newegg. You're going to find memory anywhere from half to maybe 1/3 the price there that you would pay at Office Depot or Best Buy if you shop around. Pretty good deals there. So to upgrade it, again, keeping in mind that you've grounded yourself out to avoid, memory is very sensitive to static electricity, so you don't want to damage the memory before you complete the upgrade. But find on your laptop, there's usually a panel that you can unscrew. Some laptops, it depends. I mean, some laptops you actually have to flip them over and you pull the keyboard up. And once you pull the keyboard off, I've had worked on several Toshibas and HP laptops where that was the case, even a Gateway. So it depends. Every laptop is different. Nobody's the same here, but find out where the memory is and either unscrew the panel compartment or pull the keyboard if you have to pull the keyboard to get to the memory. And okay, so I'm just gently going to pull this compartment off on this model. And notice here's the here are the 2 SODIMMs that are currently in there, and they're DDR3, but they're only 2 gigs each. So I want to go from 4 to 8, and you're like, oh my gosh, why does it need 8 gig? And well, that depends. I do a lot with virtual machines and VMware, and they're memory hogs. They eat up a lot of memory. And by the time you run 2 or 3 good virtual machines, and you've only got 4 gigabytes, you're all out of RAM. So what you want to do is put light pressure here and here, and the SODIMM chip will just pop out. Alright? And then again, make sure that you're grounded. You don't want to damage it with static, because you can always sell the old ones on eBay. Who knows? Or maybe use them in another laptop. Alright, so that's one. We pulled out. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to gently push this to the side and gently push this to the side, and it just pops up. Okay? And there's 2. So you can see I have 2 empty slots now. I'm going to put the upgrade memory in. And the first one I'm going to put in, notice it has to go in at an angle. So I have to angle in. You want to make sure that all these metal pins contact all the metal pins in the receptacle, and that they go inside the socket snugly. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. You don't want to damage it, but with a certain amount of finesse and gentleness, and then just lightly begin to push it down, and watch the 2 little side pins. You hear them click, click, click. Okay, so you know that one's in there nice and snug, and yet we did it gently so it didn't damage anything. And I'm going to use the second 4 gigabyte chip. I'm going to angle it, just like I did the first one. Angle it in there, gently, without any, hardly any pressure at all. Insert it in there. You don't want to bend the pins. And then gently press down. A little bit of pressure. Press down, down, and then click, click, click. You hear that click? And the 2 little pins will click in there. And that's it. Okay? Make sure everything's in there nice and snug. And I'm going to put the panel back on. And let's see. Pop the screw back in. And we'll boot it up. And let's go into before I boot up the operating system, whenever I upgrade the RAM or I replace bad RAM on a laptop, I always go into the CMOS or BIOS first. You want to check there before you bother checking the operating system or completely booting the system up. Make sure that it's reading the amount of RAM that it should. Okay? And so I'm going to hit F2 to go into, oops, I didn't hit it quick enough there. Let me hit F2 to go into setup. Every laptop is different. I can't remember what's what, but it'll usually say on the boot screen what button to hit to go into the BIOS, or you can Google it if that's been disabled. This model is F2. After new memory is installed, check the memory settings in the BIOS to see if it is being read properly before rebooting. Now, once you complete installing the new memory, you want to go into the BIOS and check things first. And every laptop's different. For this one I hit F2, some are escape, F10, F12, Control Alt S, weird combinations like that, but whatever the combination is. Notice here's my CPU, it's an Intel Core i3, and then come down here, and here's total memory size, and notice it's 8 gigabytes. Okay, so I'm reading properly in my BIOS. Now I know everything's okay, so I'm ready to boot up and load my operating system and whatever I want to do. And now I have twice the amount of RAM. So I finally have some breathing room. And upgrading the RAM and the hard drive are probably two of the easiest things you can do on a laptop. No soldering required. They're usually pretty easy to get to, either by lifting up the keyboard or pulling off a panel off the bottom. Other upgrades, yeah, you can do other things to a laptop that you're not supposed to do, but it requires soldering and it usually violates the warranty. And that's a bit more to get into than we want to get into today. So good luck upgrading your laptop, and just make sure you use your good friend Google to find memory that is compatible with the architecture of your laptop. Every laptop is different, every model, every brand, and they support different capacities, and they require different types of DDR3 or DDR2, or they're pretty much all going to be SODIMM, but you want to look at the clock speeds and the core voltage and things like that to make sure you get memory that's appropriate for your model. But I don't think you'll have any trouble if you just use your good friend Google.